on Zoom and recording. Is that right?
Yep, recording.
Okay. And we can see me, or maybe we can only see the agenda, which is fine. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is our October community meeting for the Roseway Neighborhood Association. We've been doing this new format of the community meetings this year. It's been great to pull in more people on interesting topics. This one is a special one because it's our annual meeting, which also means it's our elections, board elections. So that's going to be a centerpiece as well. And speaking of elections, we're also going to have a Nord Winnan present on ranked choice voting, demystify the huge ballot that you got that has a bunch of candidates and ranking, and explain that. We'll also talk about some of the current activities around placemaking, planning for a plaza, and as part of our annual report, we'll be talking about some of the things that we've accomplished so far this year, and talk about, have a treasury report and talk about the budget for this coming year, as well as some on future priorities, and of course, welcoming hopefully new volunteers. We also have a last minute addition. We have a few members of Portland Public Police here to follow up on our meeting that we had recently about some shootings that happened in the neighborhood. So they're ready to give an update on what's happening in Roseway from the police's perspective and hopefully answer a few questions. We didn't have that planned on the agenda, so it's going to be kind of tight. So we're not going to maybe have as much time as you might like, but that's part of what we'll cover here as well. So my name's Chris Hansen. I'm the president of the Neighborhood Association, and just wanted to open the meeting by welcoming you all and reminding you of, as we have discussions, please consider other people's views and be open to new thoughts. We do have some meeting ground rules that we can pass around as well, but just common sense stuff about listening and being heard. So thank you. And the Roseway Neighborhood Association is an all-volunteer organization that is here to help the neighborhood to work, live, and play together in the best way possible. So we have projects that help the community. We have events that help bring the community together, and we also try to be a bridge between the city and our residents, business owners and building owners. So we try to accomplish that through everything we do. And we really appreciate you being here to share that with all of us and find out what's important to you. So yeah, with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on since, yeah, we do have these other exciting things that we want to get through this evening. So we're going to start with Catherine Clark, who has an update on placemaking. So Catherine has been a great leader of our plaza committee. She has an update on things plaza related and Roseway Parkway. And if you're up, if you're up here, the lighting's better.
Hello, everyone. So we're going to talk about placemaking. That's the process of improving our public spaces to create quality locations that people want to use. And the first thing we're working on in the neighborhood is the new street plaza that will be at the intersection of Northeast Mason and 72nd Avenue. We were thinking that construction would start on that pretty soon, like October, but we just had an update this afternoon that PVOD has run out of funding to complete the project this year, and hopefully they'll get to it first thing in the spring.
Yeah, they haven't run out. They still have the money, but they had to do some design changes.
Yeah, so Mimi Phillips, the lead on the Greenway project, she said, they'll try to get to us first in the spring. But I'm certain that they will get to the project. We will get the plaza. The plaza will be closed to motor vehicle traffic. So we've had a placemaking committee working the last year, and this is RNA board members and neighbors working to make this a space for the community, the wider community to use. We were first directed in what we plan to do by the PSU Urban Architecture Student Survey. They had out on the Parkway, and we had about 165 responses to that survey. And by and large, people want seating in the space and shade. And there are no trees that will be large enough to provide shade for quite some time, although eventually those giant sequoias will. But we're trying to design shade structures that we can place around the tables there. So this plaza is part of the Mason Skidmore Greenway that'll run from 77th to, I think, 37th in Beaumont, Wilshire. So in addition to the seating and shade, PBOT will provide bike racks. We'll have play areas, an information station, and a grand opening party in the summer of 2025. We're also going to have a naming contest. Stay tuned for more information on that. I think that's all placemaking about the plaza. We're also, we'll be planting native plants around the plaza. So we have 4 24-foot long sections we prepared. They're covered in coffee burlap sacks right now. And we've been growing about 20 Oregon native plants. Most of them are on the Portland plant list, so they're local natives. Just a few are like deltoid balsamroot from the Hood River region. These are all sun tolerant, drought tolerant plants, really tough. We'll be planting those on Saturday, November the 9th from 9 to 12. So I hope you can come, bring your like small digging tools and help us plant those patches. So we're also hoping to extend those plantings along the parkway and in the community. We're looking at funding from Portland Clean Energy Fund grants, from Metro Placemaking Grant, and from East Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District. And then the last piece of the placemaking is the Roseway Parkway itself. So we're really lucky to have this 5-block long greenway kind of in the middle of the neighborhood. It's technically a PBOT median. It's not a park. Most of the maintenance is done by volunteers. But over the last 8 years, we've been working very closely with Portland Urban Forestry, our essential tree planting partner. We've planted over 100 trees, replacing the flowering plums as they die, and adding some in new spaces. And so right now we have over 200 trees, about 45 species, and 16 plant families. So as a way to protect this space a little bit from any land grab by the city, one thing we can do is seek Arboretum designation, like the Ainsworth Linear Arboretum and the Meek Technical School Arboretum through the arbnet.org. So this is how the Ainsworth Arboretum and Meek are registered. And I recently, Jim Gershbach and I led a tree walk on the parkway. He is the developer of the Ainsworth Linear Arboretum. He said we meet all the criteria to seek this designation. There's no charge for it. And it just would help the public recognize what a valuable space this is in our little urban forest. So that's our placemaking update, and thank you.
Sorry about that.
I didn't do it.
Okay, I know what to not do now. Yeah, thank you, Catherine, and the placemaking committee who've done great work on all this design. Megan Blossom put together the design that you saw for the mural. And yeah, the clarification hot off the presses that we got from PBOT, it's still a capital project. It is funded, but they had some redesign that they had to do. Apparently it took longer than expected. And unfortunately, with some weather constraints, they weren't able to do, they probably won't be able to do enough to do it this fall by like November. So then they've got to wait for the weather to cooperate for painting and bumps, etc. So delayed, but not forgotten. But it does push out our plaza effort as well. So stay tuned for more there. I should have checked my notes when I was kind of doing the intros because I forgot a bunch of stuff. So forgive me while I also mentioned a few other things that I should have at the beginning, such as restrooms. So restrooms are south of the sanctuary, so you can follow the signs. If you have limited mobility, there is a stair chair to the basement, and any board member or several board members should be able to help you with that. And let's see, also, Zoom participants are part of our discussion here. So if you are on Zoom, please observe the meeting ground rules that I mentioned. And we got an addendum for Zoom. Just chime in, and we're monitoring the Zoom channel there. And also, so we mentioned the board, we're going to have board elections. It's a good time to mention that there's a number of ways to get more involved with the neighborhood and the neighborhood association. And one is to volunteer for an event, something you're passionate about. And so we do have a QR code at the greeting table, and that takes you to an online form where you can say what your preferences are, what you're interested in, and we would love to have you participate in something soon. You can subscribe to our monthly bulletin. So there's a sign-in sheet. If you sign the sign-in sheet at the entry and provide your email address, we'll send you a monthly bulletin with all sorts of good news about the neighborhood and how to get more involved. The next is at this meeting or any community meeting, you can become a general member. And so there's no obligation there, it's free. It just allows you to vote for these board elections and other things such as bylaw changes. So we encourage you to check that box to become a board member. We also reiterate that on the ballot because you do need to opt into being a general member in order to vote in these board elections tonight. You can also attend a board meeting. We have them 10 times a year, and they're on the second Tuesdays of the month. And it's a great way to kind of dig in deeper to how the neighborhood association works and the things that we're involved in. And we're always looking for input there as well. You can stay at the meet and greet at the end. We're trying to carve out 15 minutes at the end from 8:45 to 9 to just gather informally. You can talk to a board member about what's going on with the neighborhood association, chat with Nord or anybody who presented tonight. And so please take advantage of that. And then, of course, you can become a member of the board of directors. And so that's a bigger commitment, but one that can be very impactful to your neighborhood. So please do consider that, especially tonight at these annual elections. So with that, I'm also going to say that we are always looking for topics of interest for these community meetings. We can have multiple topics, but it's kind of nice to have one central theme and topic or one theme for the topics. But if there's something that you're passionate about, something that you think the neighborhood should know more about, please email rosewayneighborhood@gmail.com, and we'd love to factor that in to our future programming in January, April, July, and October of next year. And so with that, we've got a few minutes here to bring up Portland Police and have them talk about any updates from our previous discussion about public safety. And yeah, thank you for being here.
I'm Sergeant Chapman. I was here back in April for those of you who were here. Joined tonight by Officer Straub and Hensley, so thank you for coming along. Really quick, when I was here last time, we talked about the neighborhood, but I failed to give you a comparison. So I just wanted to give you kind of an idea of where you stand as a neighborhood community here. So the Roseway Neighborhood Association from August of 2023 to August of 2024 was the metric here. Had 385 reported incidents that were called into us. Now, it can be multiple callers on one incident, but 385 reported incidents. So I took the 3 surrounding neighborhood associations that adjoin you all, just to kind of give you an idea. So Madison South had 513. The Coley Neighborhood Association had 959, and Rose City Park had 485. So your neighborhood association sitting at 385, looking pretty good. So just to give you an idea of where you're at in relation to your neighbors. Out of the statistics, we had 0 homicides in your neighborhood association last year, and 22 prostitution arrests, which goes back to the conversation we had last time I was here, and we were talking about 82nd Avenue and the community concerns over what was going on there. So I want to provide those statistics for you. I will say that over the summer, Portland Police was running human trafficking missions, predominantly on 82nd Avenue, street racer missions, which I'm not sure if you noticed the reduction in that, especially since we had some big events happening that brought people all the way up from California, Idaho, Washington, down to this area. But I think the impact was a lot less this year, and that was due to a lot of diligent planning and effort put forth by the chief himself. And I know that touched this neighborhood as well, especially coming off of 82nd. And lastly, East Precinct predominantly has been performing a lot of stolen vehicle operation missions, but those travel over into this neighborhood as well. So all 3 major operations that we did through the summer and into the fall all positively helped this neighborhood and had a direct impact on this neighborhood. So I just wanted to share that with you. And again, a lot of that credit goes to the chief and the programs he's supporting, because he hears back from the communities on what's affecting you, and he focuses on us. So I want to share that with you. That being said, I said I would limit my time up here. So I think people usually want to ask general questions more than hear statistics. So I'm more than happy to take any questions that I can.
Would you introduce your colleagues, just so I'm the secretary, so I'm just trying to keep track of who's here.
Sure. You want to stand up for me?
Officer Stroud, Nord Winnan.
Thank you.
Officer Nestle.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, I guess I'll just chime in, but not take for the speaker, because I made that mistake already. Yeah, thank you so much for all your work on the missions, especially and the street takeovers. As you know, were really disruptive to the center of our neighborhood, Sandy and 72nd. So that was really night and day in terms of that proactive enforcement. Sounds like a lot of monitoring of that particular event and the group. And it was made a huge difference to our neighborhood, especially, and avoided the violence that we've seen in the past. So really appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, I think, you know, in terms of the statistics, hopefully we're not like being too quiet and underreporting. We have been encouraging people to note when there's shots fired and such, and also, but our neighborhood is also less residents than some of those other ones, so that accounts for some of maybe the number being low. But additionally, I think yeah, we're looking good in terms of general safety. Yeah, appreciate that. And so any other questions for Officer Chapman? In red?
Has the activity at 82nd and Milton calmed down a little bit?
So the question is, has the activity at 82nd and Milton calmed down?
Can you be specific about the activity?
There was a lot of prostitution and shootings and just general things going on in that area.
Statistically, as a trend, yes. I know there was a lot of attention from the human trafficking unit in that area, specifically focusing on Johns and the traffickers of women versus those who may be working the trade themselves. But I know that focus had a huge impact and has brought down those numbers, if not dispersed the issue. So there's one more.
I was just curious, so I'm assuming a lot of the guns fired and gunshots are happening around 82nd, but how much is happening in other places? Like, I don't like in other places in Roseway. Off of 82nd. Like, how nervous do I need to be, like on 75th, where I live, walking around at night, like, am I gonna randomly get shot? I mean, I don't feel like I am, but like, how much activity is going around?
Well, I'd say that I think in instances of gunfire, particularly if it's coming from vehicles, it's going to be constrained to the main thoroughways, which 82nd certainly is.
Yeah.
We don't get a whole lot of reports of people driving through tight residential neighborhoods where you have to only have one car coming between two parked cars at the same time and firing off a lot of rounds. So based on the construct of the inner area of, I think you're okay. Certainly safer than on 82nd. Although I can't say I've seen a dramatic spike going on 82nd of drive-by shootings or things of that nature. Does that answer that?
Yeah, does it tell us in the incident, like how much of it's gunshots out of the 300?
You can certainly, I put this out there last time. I brought if you got something to write with, or you can refer back to it. But if you go to portland.gov, it's just the general site, and there's a subsection called Portland, Oregon Data Portal. And you click into there, and then you can go to Portland crime statistics, and then you can narrow it down by neighborhood association. If you want to narrow it down that small, that's what I did preparing to come here. And you can drill down into those menus all you want and see what the dispersal is. And I just don't have the 2 hours to give that to you. I'd love to do that.
Totally understand.
A great resource, and it's updated monthly.
Yeah, and that.
We've lived here for 2 decades. We're kind of new to what's been going on with the shootings. And I'm just wondering whether the shootings that have been happening on 82nd or whatever, these are random type shootings, are they gang related, are they targeted shootings? What is the nature of the shootings?
And can you paraphrase the questions that Zoom?
Yeah, so the question was, what is the nature of the shootings? Are they gang related? Are they targeted? Do we know the nexus is what I'm getting at. To be honest, there are a myriad of different reasons why shootings happen. We certainly have our gun team that's out there, and some of those trace back to shootings around the city and turn into a nexus, and people travel from point A to point B to do that. Some of them are just random celebratory shootings. People thinking that's great to go outside and crank off rounds in celebration. I can't think of a scene that I've been to where there's just been a mass gang shooting, and we're dealing with that kind of issue here in this neighborhood around 82nd. Like I said, we've had 0 homicides on 82nd, at least within the boundaries of your neighborhood association over the last year.
Follow-up question, but the weapons that are used in shootings, that they tend to be mainly handguns, or is it a mix of weapons?
I don't have the stats on that offhand. So
is it automatic weapons?
no, I haven't seen any automatic weapons out there.
And thank you for your questions. We do need to move on with our agenda here. If you have any other questions specifically for the officers, are you all going to be around for a few minutes?
We're actually taking off to hit the street. So.
Okay, they got to head back out. But I guess if you have any follow-on questions, if you send it to rosewayneighborhood@gmail.com, we will get it forwarded to Officer Chapman. So yeah, thank you. And just one follow-up to your question about, like, is it safe walking through the neighborhood? Yes, it's safe to walk through the neighborhood. There were some reports back in May of shots fired around Wellington Park, which is obviously very concerning. There's Scott Elementary there. The chances of you getting caught in that kind of crossfire are probably much less than like walking across the street, or like looking at your phone while you're walking across the street, which somebody did today in front of me. So yeah, I don't think it's something that you need to worry about, other than, of course, people, it's affecting humans and lives, but yeah, it's relatively rare. So thank you officers for joining, and then we're going to move on to our annual report, and kind of the centerpiece for that is to talk about the accomplishments that the neighborhood associations had in 2024, following a great year and lots of good stuff done in 2023. And I'm going to see if I can come over here and not anger the speaker gods. And thank you, Ash. So I'm just going to wing it for a minute here. Starting with these meetings themselves, the community meetings, as I said, we started doing those in 2024. And it's been a great way to gather people together and have kind of more curated information for the community, as opposed to like needing to drop into a board meeting and maybe having to deal with quite a bit of board business. And we just found that the attendance wasn't great at those meetings. So we started doing that in January of 2024, and we kicked it off with a bang with the topic being, what does it mean to be in District 3, which will start officially at the beginning of 2025. And so we had a presentation on our district coalition, a new district coalition, Southeast Uplift, and they explained what they do. And then we had a candidate forum, and it was actually the first candidate forum for District 3 ever, since District 3 is newly formed. So many of these candidates hadn't met each other. We certainly hadn't met them. So it was a great chance for them to get to know each other, for us to get to know their positions, and for them to know that there are these Northeast neighborhoods that are part of their district that they may not live in, they may not get up to that much. And so it's a great way for them to see what we're up to. So that was an awesome kickoff for our community meetings. And then in April, we did touch on public safety, given the shooting, shots fired around Wellington. Fortunately, nobody had been hurt then or since. And then it mainly focused on updates on several Portland Bureau of Transportation projects that are happening in the neighborhood and continue to make slow progress, as we mentioned before with the Greenway. And so in July, we talked about our local environment here with the work on the plaza and the parkway, as well as Rose City Bluff, some depaving effort at Rose City Park Elementary that some Rosewareans students go to. And then of course we have this meeting tonight. So moving on, we're going to touch a little bit on the events that we've had this year. For a couple of years, we've had an Earth Day event, and it's a great way to kick off the season as the weather starts to get warm and honor the earth. We also tabled at Sunday Parkways and gave streamers to kids and adults for their bikes and just let people know about the neighborhood. And we had a very successful concert in the park in Glen Haven with the band Wamba, and by some count, I think it was like 600 attendees at that concert. So that was awesome, great weather and everything. Also, the weather cooperated for our ice cream social, where we also reintroduced or reminded people of the neighborhood emergency team. And so speaking of that, we've got some folks from the neighborhood emergency team here tonight, and there's some materials just outside. And Eric, do you want to stand up and just introduce yourself?
My name is Eric Berg. I've lived actually in Roseway for 23 years this November. It's hard to believe it's been that long of a time. And I was trained as a neighborhood emergency team member back in 2016, which is the City of Portland program. I was involved a little bit after that at the local level, then life gets in the way and you do other things. And recently I've had time to devote more time to it. So we're gonna start another neighborhood association team soon. And I don't have a grand vision, but I imagine it'll be, just based on the conversations I've had with the neighborhood association and others, it'll be really kind of working through the neighborhood association and not necessarily focusing on people who are trained as nets, that go through the 30 hours and have the FEMA training and know how to triage and all that kind of stuff. Just general preparedness. So there's information out there in general preparedness, as well as that is specific on net. And if you're on our list, we'll add you. I'll make a list, and then we'll get you there, and we'll try to just make preparedness kind of a centerpiece for at least an ongoing initiative in the neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you, Eric, for firing that back up. And yeah, just a reminder that like in an emergency, especially like the big one, the Cascadia subduction earthquake, it's your local neighbors just on your block who will likely be most likely to help you or for you to help them. So any education we can get, you know, about preparing for such an emergency and helping our neighbors is going to be amazing. So yeah, we look forward to all that will be there, and so do check in with Eric in the meet and greet or at the table and find out more. So yeah, and then in August we had our dumpster day. It's a great event, a way for people to get their excess stuff out of their houses and apartments, etc. And it's also a big fundraiser for the neighborhood association. So it's a way for us to make money for the events and things that we want to put on and do to help the neighborhood. So yeah, thank you, Dave, for organizing those. And then, you know, Catherine and crew have been working diligently on a tree walk recently, and so these are all ways to value that our Roseway Parkway has. And then also we had a solstice celebration this last time, and that's coming again in December. So we're actually going to update this. This is live on our website. As we do more here between now and the end of the year. We, as a design, that's moving on. We're really looking forward to getting that built out in 2025. And then a lot of the effort is outreach, just making sure that people are resources with the city of Portland, a lot of agencies, events going on around the neighborhood. So the best way to reach people, and we're also, we post regularly on Facebook and Instagram. And we try to send out a meeting mailer, a mailer about our community meetings. We did that this year for these meetings here. So yeah, let's keep scrolling down. We are working on, we don't have, this isn't technically an accomplishment yet, but we've got some preliminary designs that we're working through for signage in the neighborhood, getting banners back up, other potential monuments. So really just solidifying the identity of the neighborhood. And so look for more there. And if you're interested in getting more involved, then do reach out to us. And so just gonna move kind of quickly through some of the other things that we've been working on, which included DEI training for our board so that we are conversant in diversity, equity and inclusion and access, and business relations. We've been connecting with our local business owners, and they're actually interested in forming a business district association, which is a separate thing from a neighborhood association. The neighborhood association is really focused on our residents primarily, but a business district would really help to have those businesses to learn from one another and help each other. Especially when we've got so many vacancies on Sandy Boulevard, etc. So stay tuned for more there. And let's see, so yeah, we sponsor school and community events throughout the year. So if you know of events that are happening at the schools that benefit the neighborhood or benefit the schools, then we would like to know about that. And we did quite a bit of work to help eliminate the street takeover. So Officer Chapman mentioned that. We did officially endorse the state law that strengthened penalties and provided some new tools for enforcement for street takeovers. And in 2024, we really saw the results, because up to then we had street takeovers usually twice a year at 72nd and Sandy. We had none this summer. And we think that it's really related to that enforcement, the medians that we helped, PBOT to encourage PBOT to put in. Those helped as well. So that was a great example of us working together for really practical improvements. So yeah, and then we got some additional achievements, accomplishments that we did this year. I won't go into all of them, but thank you so much to the board for this last year for all that work. Really appreciate it. And if I can get a round of applause for our board members. And I think, thank you, board. And I think I neglected as well to ask for the board members to stand up, if nothing else, so that when we get to the meet and greet at the end, that you know who the board members are, who you could chat with. And I guess these would be current board members, so even if you're not running again tonight, it would be nice to acknowledge you. So we'll do one more round of applause here. Thank you so much. What's that at?
Board members on Zoom too.
Oh, yeah, awesome. Okay, and speaking of Zoom, anything, okay.
Some lighting and audio, learning opportunities.
Okay. Awesome. And so let me just fumble through my notes here. So yeah, then next is in terms of the annual report, we have Catherine, can you briefly share the Treasury report? Yeah, up here so people can hear you.
It's all on here too, you can access it. Have an exciting update. Not that exciting. So our current US bank balance is $16,608.04. But the exciting update is that yesterday on the 4th try, we were able to open a savings account connected to our checking account, so we can keep our money safer by moving most of it into the savings. So thanks David Moskowitz and Rhonda Johnson for showing up for that. That really was the 4th try. We have a Give Lively account, that's a QR based donation system. You'll receive a receipt if you make a donation. We have a flyer out in the lobby, and that we use that money for anything we want to build, create for the neighborhood. So it's out there. So the balance right now is $262. So the only incoming funds for the period came from the remainder of dumpster day funds, $195.23, although we made it over $3,000 after paying everything. Communications, $218 for our website charges, t-shirts with the RNA logo. And then our general funds, we used funds to pay our Oregon Department of Justice charitable organization registration and for Ice Cream Social, and some small grant funds for pollinator pathway supplies and Earth Day supplies. Do you want to talk about the budget committee at all, or it's on your agenda?
Yeah, if you want to talk about it.
Well, I'll just say that we formed a budget committee this fall or September, and Bob Price, who's been a very long time board member, said this is the first time we've had a budget committee. So Chris and David Moskowitz and I met, and we worked out some things, regularly occurring charges that we would pre-approve, so we didn't have to vote every single time to pay something or other, and worked out, a resiliency grant to purchase Safeway gift cards to distribute to neighbors in need of some help with food and things like that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Among all the other work with placemaking also, as the treasurer, so thank you for your efforts. Yeah, I did see on Zoom a plug. We wanted to mention that the Rose City Bluff restoration work that goes on south of Sacramento, just on the upslope of the golf course. They've been doing a great job planting native plants and getting rid of invasives. And they do have a planting day this Sunday, I believe it is. So just a plug to If you've ever thought about doing some work on the bluff to increase its health, that's the planting day is a great opportunity to plant some native plants and enjoy hopefully good weather. Knock on wood. So does that capture what that was? Thank you. So we're running a little tight on our schedule, so I was going to talk about future priorities. I'll just mention that some of the things that we've talked about already, like the plaza, parkway improvements, signage, that'll be some of the focus for next year, but a lot of it will be determined by the new board. So we'll have some board members coming back, hopefully some new board members. So we look forward to hearing more about that as we regroup with the new board and figure out our priorities and what we're passionate about and what we have the time to pursue. So with that, I'm going to move on unless there's any other questions before we move on. So that does bring us to our board elections. I think I've got some notes on that as well. So as I mentioned, there's many ways to contribute to the neighborhood, including, some of it doesn't involve the neighborhood association at all. People do street murals on their block and do other great works in the neighborhood, organize the Good Morning Steppers, for instance. But there's a lot of great stuff that goes through the neighborhood association, and you can participate by joining a committee you're interested in, working on a specific project. You don't need to be a board director or even a general member to contribute in that way, but being a board director is an additional level of commitment and investment and reward, I think. And so the board sets policy, determines priorities for the overall neighborhood association, and we're committed to attending at least 10 board meetings a year so that we have a quorum and having complementary skills within our group. So it ends up being at least 4 to 6 hours a month, and more if you're volunteering for other things, but that covers kind of the meetings and communications that we do. But it's a great way to really make even more of an investment in your neighborhood. So anyone who's a resident, building owner, or business owner of the neighborhood, we encourage you to try joining the board and joining our merry band here. So we do that when we have empty seats, we can nominate people off cycle, but this is our main October election for the board as per our bylaws. So we can have up to 15 directors. And so this year we have 9 board members whose terms are expiring, and of those 6 are choosing to run again. And then we also have vacant seats. So we'll list off, can we switch over to the ballot? So while we're finding that, I'll say that the board members who have chosen to run again are Ted Carlston, Bob Price, Ash Hester, Catherine Clark, Chris King, and Rachel Anderholder. Then we have a few board members whose terms are not expiring until next year, so I didn't mention those. They won't be on the ballot, and that includes myself. So with that, do any general members, would you like to nominate yourself or nominate somebody else to be a board director? This would be the time. Ken. All right, Ken, thank you for nominating yourself. And we're going to have a lightning round of introductions here. So be ready to move on up, whether you're an existing board member who's renewing or, Ken Garrard. Gary, I'm sorry. Yeah, well,
Can you spell it, Ken?
Garrard.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so used to going just by Ken. And yes, Joan. Joan Miller would like to nominate herself. And you'll have a chance to introduce yourself, so I won't do that for you. Thank you, Joan. Anyone else?
Calvin Bear, I'd like to nominate myself as well.
Calvin Baird is nominating himself. Thank you so much. And anybody on Zoom?
I would like to nominate Charles Frolick. That's correct. Would you
Sure.
like to accept that nomination?
Okay, Ash nominates Charles Frolick. Frolick. Thank you. Okay, awesome. Anyone else? Awesome. And so, yeah, let's have everyone give like less than 1 minute introduction to yourself so that we know who we're voting for. And then what's going to happen is that we have QR codes, and we've got some at the seats up here, and we can kind of pass them around. So if you have a phone that is capable of getting to a website, our preferred way to vote is that you use that, and then you'll put in some information. That also covers, you'll put in your address and check a box to say that you want to be a member if you're not already. And that makes sure that we properly account for the fact that you are in Roseway. Bring up those ballots if you can, but don't bring them up yet until we know. Have we got all the?
Yeah, no one can Zoom. I have no nominations on Zoom. Just let you know that it's on Zoom. So.
Yep. So cool. Yeah. So then you can start to scan those QR codes and bring up the ballot, and then just wait to vote until we've heard people's introductions of themselves. But if you do not have a phone or are not comfortable voting in that way, we do have paper ballots as well. And so Brittany Kessler will be prepared to give people that. Sarah.
How many people is that total versus the number of seats that are left?
Right. In other words, is there a competition here among
we have
people?
12 open seats and there are, I believe, 11 people running, so we're good.
Okay, so yeah, 12 open seats, 11 candidates. So you don't have to worry about it being too cutthroat.
Right, it's 12, right?
Yeah, 12 because we only have 3 who are not running, yeah, or do not need to run because their terms aren't over. Yes. So yeah, we're all good then. Let's start on Zoom here. Ted, can you introduce yourself? Yeah, Ted, can you unmute? Oh, or maybe we don't have things well set up.
Here it comes.
Can you hear me?
Oh, he's on me.
See how loud that puppy can be.
You can bring your mic up. All right, Ted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
The best we can, yeah.
Okay, I'm Ted Carlston. I've been in the neighborhood most of my life. I've been in here 70 years. My current house 50 years. And I just like to keep, the knowledge of what I know over the history of the neighborhood going. I've
Awesome.
looked at other neighborhoods and haven't found anything better. So thanks.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Ted. And Bob, can you come up and introduce yourself?
I do it from here.
As long as people can hear okay, the Zoom people can chime in on whether they can hear you well.
Bob Price, I've lived in the neighborhood over 40 years. It's a nice way to stay involved and stay attached. And I also am part of the Roseway Cutting crew. We take care of the parkway during the nice weather.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Can folks on Zoom hear that okay? It looks like the transcription worked decently. I think, yeah, unless we get any feedback that's not clear on Zoom, then maybe people can talk from
I
the
can't
space.
hear very well, sorry.
Okay. So Ash, can you come on up and introduce yourself?
Yes.
Hey, I'm Ash Hester. I've been sitting on the board for 2 years. I've been living in Roseway for 2 years, so I really dove right in. Some of the things I contributed towards, did a couple leadership roles, so sitting currently as the vice president, ad hoc support for Chris and the organization, helping with some policy refinement and operations, help steer the DEI training for the board members, because I believe that inclusivity and equity is very important. And then currently sitting as the Sewell representative for Roseway, so liaison for our community, make sure our voices and concerns are being addressed, and that we also have access to citywide resources. And yeah, just a big fan of the relationship building and the community efforts, and look forward to the opportunity to serve another term.
Awesome, thank you, Ash. And then Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine Clark. I've been here since 2013 in Roseway, heavily involved with the Parkway since 2015 with the tree planting and collaborating with urban forestry. I joined the board 2 years ago and served as the interim treasurer for 1 year and then was elected treasurer last year. I've been heavily involved in writing 2 grants. We brought in $6,000 with grants. And that let us have our first and second Earth Day events, a movie in the park, a concert in the park, pollinator patches. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And Chris King.
Hi, everyone. Chris King. I live on Failing Street. I've been on the board now for, I guess, 2 years. Whenever Brittany and Rachel started, I came across the board. I was painting over graffiti on Sandy and found out that there was a much easier way to do that. And Chris showed me that I could just report it and the city would come and paint it for me. So I figured they had some bright ideas here, and yeah, I enjoyed doing it. It was a great way to get to know the neighborhood, and look forward to doing more.
Thank you, Chris. And Rachel.
Hi, everybody. My name's Rachel Anderholder. I've been in the neighborhood for 8 years, and I've been on the board for the last 2 years. And I'm also the executive director of a small nonprofit. So I try to bring a lot of that nonprofit knowledge to the board. I'm on the governance committee with Chris and Ash and worked to develop our board manual. So for those of you interested in joining the board, we've got some good onboarding materials to share. And I love helping Catherine out with things on the Parkway and the Earth Day event and the Plaza Committee. So yeah, I love this neighborhood, and it's a great group of people to be a part of. So thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. And Ken, I should have provided you a little bit of advance warning, but if you can come on up, because I think, yeah, you're the first person to raise your hand. Oh, and can we bring up the ballot again so that we are reminded of who's going to come up next?
Hello, my name is Ken Garrett. I moved to the Roseway neighborhood about a year ago election day. But I visited many times since Catherine moved here, and I live on 72nd Avenue across from the Parkway, and been involved as a volunteer in the placemaking committee and in tree planting and Parkway care. And I'd just like to continue doing that and be more involved with the neighborhood and meet some more people, since this is where I live now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Joan?
Good evening. My name is Joan Miller, and I'm perhaps the outlier here in that I don't live in the neighborhood, but I've been attending the Roseway Neighborhood Association meetings for 5 years. For the last 5 years, I've been the pastor of this church and also the executive director of Recovery Cafe Roseway. And we are committed to being a part of the neighborhood and want to see this facility used in support of the neighborhood. And that's why I've been a part of the association and why I would like to continue serving.
Thank you, Joan, so much. And yeah, when we talk about like business representatives in the neighborhood, that really includes nonprofits such as churches. So, and thank you, Joan, for hosting our events in the recent past. And it's been awesome to be here. Calvin.
Hi, all. My name's Calvin Bear. My family and I live down on 67th, and for the last couple of years, some neighbors and friends and I have been riding herd on Peabot to try to get some improvements to the Greenway, which has resulted in some handshake deals for crosswalks and ADA ramps and speed bumps that will benefit the park and the school. And I came to a meeting and I was impressed with the political clout that was here, and I thought that we could maybe get more out of Peabot for the school and the park in particular. And so I'd like to keep those efforts going and get engaged with PTA and try to like make it safe for all the kids and families, everybody. That's kind of how it goes. So thanks.
Oh, and then lastly, we have Charles.
Hello, my name is Charles Froelich, and I live on Northeast 70th. Moved here to this neighborhood in 2017, and I've been on other boards, and I like the activity of meeting and representing an organization that represents my interest. And since I'm a neighbor here, I want this neighborhood to keep improving in safety and livability and fun or recess. So if you vote for me, I'll have more recess. But I think that our neighborhood association needs to be supported more at the city level, and watching how the city kind of took a lot of the connection from neighborhood associations away years ago. I want to help be a part of bringing that back.
Thank you, Charles, and all the candidates. And one note on the connection to the city, you know, we're cautiously optimistic that this change to district level governance, where you're going to have 3 district councilors that are specific to our district and they map to the neighborhoods. We're hoping that that will provide a really nice channel between neighborhoods, districts, and to ultimately to City Hall and City Council decisions. So knock on wood there. So thank you all for the candidates who've stepped up. I want to also acknowledge a few board members who've done just awesome work for the last 2 or more years. So thank you so much to Brittany Kessler. Then let's see, who else is that? And Aaron Werner. And Werner, all of you have done such awesome work. You could give a 5-minute talk yourself about all the things that you've done great, and I could as well. But in the interest of time, let's move on to voting. So let me check my notes again to see if there's any like really smart things I should be saying. So yeah, we've got the ballots. We'll put the ballot back up here in case you are voting by paper, but ideally, especially if you're on Zoom, it'll be natural just to go to the ballot. And yeah, go ahead, Brittany.
If you need a paper ballot, just raise your hand first.
Yeah, again, paper. If anybody needs a paper ballot, please come to Brittany or raise your hand. Brittany will come to you. Otherwise, just go ahead and use that QR code and vote with your phone. Don't forget to put in your address so we can verify your eligibility to be a member, and don't forget to check that box to say that you want to be a member. All the city bylaw rules. And so we're going to then vote while we, this is sort of meta, we're going to have the vote while we hear from our next presenter about ranked choice voting, not for this board position, but for the city overall. And so that'll give you some time to vote, and then we'll tally and announce the results after Nord's presentation. Yeah, we got a question.
Yeah, just a quick question, Chris. If the council is right that there's a vacancy, what do the bylaws say about filling that vacancy if this is the only election meeting this year? Will it just stay vacant until next year's board meeting?
It will become vacant until or unless somebody steps up like off cycle, but somebody can step up off cycle. I'd have to look back at the bylaws, but it might have to wait for a general community meeting to fill that, but it doesn't have to be at that October meeting exclusively.
The board can make nominations to fill vacancies throughout the cycle.
Yeah, I guess nominations and approval. Yeah, okay, yeah, that was my recollection.
Yeah,
Okay.
like, so if somebody was interested, they would approach the board at a board meeting, and then we go through that process and make the nomination for the interim of that. They would fill the role of like, well, then their cycle would go into like I guess like what is their yearly cycle?
I think it would just be a short cycle, less than the 2 years. So did everyone hear that part of it? Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Yeah, so if you know of anybody else who you think might be interested, don't necessarily have to wait till next year. So with that, any other issues with the ballot or problems there before we move on to our next presentation? Sarah.
Just wanted to confirm there's 10 people on the ballot.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah, so 10 people on the ballot and 3 returning board members who are not being voted on. Does that sound right?
Yes, if you want to do a sneaky write-in.
Right. So yeah, with that, get your ballots all filled out, and in the meantime, I want to introduce Nord. Am I pronouncing it right? Winnan? Okay, awesome. And Nord is going to help to demystify this very large ranked choice voting ballot that we've all received in the mail. So thank you, Nord.
Hi there. Hello, neighbors and friends. As Chris says, thank you. My name is Nord Winnan, and we will discuss ranked choice voting in Portland, which we will use for city elections in 2 weeks. When we vote, we fill in our ballots, we submit them, and then we wait. We wait for election officials and machines to do their work until the election results are announced. In other words, voting has 2 phases. First, voters mark their ballots with their choices and they submit them. Second, voters' ballots are processed and votes are tallied to get the election results. We will be using ranked choice voting ballots for the city elections. We will be using instant runoff voting process for the mayor and city auditor elections. Though this year, 19 people want to be mayor, but only the city auditor is running by herself for that office. I guess being mayor is a much more terrifying, well, it's a less terrifying job than being city auditor. And we'll use single transferable vote for the city council elections. Next slide. So in our new voting system, we can rank up to 6 candidates in preference order for each of the city offices. That's better than the choose one voting system that we used to have for the city elections. With ranked choice voting, several dozen tallying processes are possible. And Portland has adopted 2 very good ones: the instant runoff voting and single transferable vote. The instant runoff voting and the single transferable vote processes were developed in the 19th century. They've been extensively studied and have been adopted successfully in many jurisdictions worldwide, including these. Next slide, please. Maybe you've gotten your ballot already. I've gotten mine. And maybe you've had a chance to look it over. But here's a side-by-side comparison of old and new ballots. On the old ballot, see, it says vote for one for every single one of the races. On the new ballot, we have a matrix with the candidates listed along the rows and their ranks along the columns. Notice that we can still write in candidates and they have to be ranked. We fill in the ovals, just as we do for all of the races. We fill in the ovals, but on ranked choice ballots, we do it in such a manner that we get 1 mark in each column, unless you're ranking fewer than 6 candidates, in which case the last columns would have no marks, and you'd have no more than 1 mark in each row. And the intent of your ranking choices will be clearer if you do that, so that you will also avoid the system corrections that the voting process has built into it. All voters should rank 6 candidates if possible to take full advantage of ranked choice voting, and our new voting system will work best. Next slide, please. Let's see an overview of our ranked choice voting tallying processes. The idea of instant runoff voting for one office elections is that a winner must get a majority of votes. That's better than the old system where a winner just needed a plurality, even if it was less than a majority of votes. The idea of single transferable vote, where we're voting for 3 offices at the same time, that is for proportional elections, is that all 3 winners together must get a supermajority of votes. Each winner needs more than the election threshold, which is 25%, so that all 3 winners together must get more than 75% of the vote. Next slide, please. The instant runoff process works like this. After all of the input, all of the ballots have been inputted, we set our counter to 1, because in round 1, we count the first ranks for every candidate and compare the totals. We ask whether or not we have a majority winner. If we have a majority winner, that person is elected and we're done with this election. If not, we eliminate a candidate with the least votes and then transfer those votes to the other candidates according to the next level of rankings. We increase our counter to 2 because we're going to have a second round where we reallocate those votes according to those next preferences, and we check the updated vote counts to find out whether or not we have another, whether or not we have a majority winner. And if we do, then of course this race is done. If not, we repeat this process. We eliminate another candidate with the least votes and allocate that candidate's votes to the other candidates according to the next level of preferences. Check the vote counts that have been updated by this way, and in order to find out whether or not we have a majority winner, and so on.
The majority amount, what was the percentage that it needed to be?
More than 50%. And actually, it's 50% of the ballots that have been submitted plus 1. You can take a look at the comprehensive description or the Portland website to get more information about this. So next slide, please. Let's take a closer look at the elimination and transfer process. Suppose in a round, the vote totals look like this, where no candidate has gotten a majority. Then we eliminate the candidates with the least votes. Here it's Chris. Chris's votes are reallocated among the other candidates using the next level of ranks. We update the totals, and then we compare to see if we have a candidate who's gotten more than a majority of the votes. Next slide, please. The single transferable vote process is a bit more complicated. When we're electing 3 counselors at the same time, there are 3 possibilities in a round. Either 3 candidates got each got more than 25%, and we're done with the race. Or we have no winners, and we eliminate a candidate and transfer the votes to the other candidates. If we get if we have a winner, maybe 1 or 2 winners, then we transfer the surplus of those winners to the other candidates. So now let's go through this diagram, going from right to left, after the first round of counting. If there are 3 winners, then the counselors, all 3 counselors have been elected, and we're done. If there are only 2 winners, then we transfer the surplus of those winners, and if necessary, we in multiple rounds, we eliminate the least vote getter and transfer those votes. We do this process until we get a 3rd winner, and we're done. If there's only 1 winner, then we do a similar sort of process, transferring the surplus of the winner to the other candidates, and maybe doing multiple rounds of elimination and transfer until we get a 2nd winner. And then we use the 2-winner process that we just went through until we get a 3rd winner. If no winner results from the first counting, then we have to go through an elimination and transfer process until we get 1 or 2 winners. And we use either this 1-winner process or the 2-winner process until we get all 3 winners for the race. Of course, it's possible at every elimination transfer step to get 3 winners, but I omitted that from the slide because I felt the slide was complicated enough.
And with that, you said 25% of the votes is what constitutes a winner?
Yes, in order to win election as a counselor, you have to get more than 25%.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. So let's take a closer look at the surplus transfer process. Suppose in a round the vote totals look like this, with 1 winner. Then we work with the winner, in this case it's Bert, work with Bert's votes, and we transfer the surplus votes using the next level of rankings to the other candidates. But before adding those surplus votes to the other candidates, we have to scale this so that we're only transferring the surplus portion of the votes. And we use what's called a transfer value, which is based on something called a surplus fraction, all of which are defined in the Portland City Code in order to achieve this surplus scaling. Once all of the votes have been updated, we go through another round to see if any of the candidates have achieved the more than the election threshold of 25%. Next slide, please. Our new voting system will have benefits. It'll improve campaigns and will affect the timing of results. Candidates want to be in your preference ranking, even if they're not your first rank preference. The two major political parties will no longer have an advantage as before because more diverse candidates are incentivized to run. City elections can be done in one stage, no more primaries or election runoffs, saving us time and expense. The new tallying processes are more complicated because they use more voter input and are fairer. Preliminary election results and projections will be more difficult to do, and the final election results may take more time. That's all there is to it, to our new voting system. So now let's vote. Skip the slide, please. Okay. If you know how you will rank 19 candidates for mayor or 30 candidates for city council, great. But if you're tearing your hair out like me, here's a good method from the 18th century French scholar Condorcet. As an initial 0th step, eliminate candidates, for example, because they provided insufficient information or you never want to vote for them. Then pairwise compare two of the candidates after your eliminations and put them into your preference ranking. Write that down. Then pairwise compare a third candidate with each of the candidates that you just ranked and update your ranking. Then repeat that process for all of the remaining candidates until you get a complete ranking. From your complete ranking, you mark your ballot with your top up to 6 candidates. That's it. Okay, go back one slide. Go back one slide. Go back. Yeah. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions about any of this? Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about the software computer program being used for this complicated process? Is it at least new software? Where does it come from? And how has it been tested already?
Can you repeat the question?
Question was about the software that's being used for doing all of the tallying and the ballot processing, whether it's been tested and so forth. Yes, the software that's being used, actually, I don't recall which company is doing it, but there are a number of companies that have been doing this sort of ballot processing for ranked choice voting. And the one that's been chosen, as I recall, is quite reputable one. These are software and the algorithms that they're based on are very well known. They've been tested quite a bit, have been studied extensively, as I mentioned in my presentation, in many places around the world. So I think we can be pretty confident that the software systems that are being used here are good ones.
Is there any estimate of how much longer it could take longer to process these results? Is there any experience of how much longer this system would take?
The question is whether or not there's any information about how long it takes, whether it takes longer to process elections using ranked choice voting. And I think there is. I don't have a resource specifically to tell you about. It's possible that in the resource list that I think is going to be available, several websites and so forth, that some of that might be discussed. But it will take a little bit longer. You really can't do any of the tallying until all of the ballots have been submitted. And in our case, like in many jurisdictions that have adopted ranked choice voting, once all of the ballots have been input, they have to be checked for corrections. Sometimes people will make mistakes on the ballot, and the system has some automatic controls, automatic routines for making corrections based on reasonable inferences on the ballots that are submitted. So it does take a little bit longer, and then of course, since the election, all of these tallying processes are done in rounds, that takes a little bit longer than just plain counting. Again, I don't have any specific information to tell you about how long it takes, whether it's a lot longer, but they should be pretty fast. It's not like it's going to take weeks.
It could be days. Though.
I guess it's possible that it might be days, but I think all this is done by computers, and it should be pretty fast. It should be. We should be able to get the election results for ranked choice voting within hours. It seems to me, just like for elections that we've had in the past.
And can I interrupt before we do any more questions about this? Just because speaking of ballots, if you can just like take out of your head for a moment what we've been talking about with the Portland City ballot, or Multnomah County technically, and put into your head the board ballot that you all have been filling out. We did have a little snafu there where the required question wasn't correct, but the ballots and the candidates were still there. Did everyone get through their ballot okay, or did anybody get flummoxed there? Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm sure the city voting will go more smoothly than our board elections, but you know, they have the technology. So, back to the questions.
Yes.
Can you speak at all to the strategy of not using all of your votes? So, for example, there's 19 candidates for mayor.
Right.
I was talking to somebody recently who was like, there's only 2 people that I'm interested in, so I only voted for 2 people, even though I have more spots to do so. Can you speak to anything to that strategy of not using all of your votes?
Of course, you don't have to rank all 6. You know, in what I would call the worst case, if you just choose one of the people in a one-office election, or you just choose 3 people in a council election, then you can do that. But ranked choice voting, it enables you to have more input into the voting process if you use all 6 rankings. There are also some technical issues with that people have debated about not using as many rankings as you have available to you. And so it's a lot better if people use all 6 rankings if they can. You've got essentially a new right, a new power to have an impact on the elections if you use all 6. It puts a little bit more of an onus on the voter, because the voter has to go out and get more information about candidates and try to do an evaluation. It's really a daunting process to try to figure out how you're going to rank 6 people out of 30, for example, or 1 out of or 6 out of 19 for that matter. But I think it's worth the effort. Does that answer the question? Okay. Yes.
What the technical issues you were describing? Can you highlight some of those?
What maybe one issue that is that has been debated a little bit among people who are concerned about some of these technical issues is something called ballot exhaustion. If you go through several rounds of voting, and at some stage you're using some level of rankings, not the first one, but somewhere far down the list, it's possible that some people haven't ranked that far down in their ballots. They instead of ranking 6 And if you're like in the 5th round or something like that, some people may have only have ranked 3 or 4. And so the 5th level of rankings is not going to be available. And so that person's ballot isn't going to count. And that ballot is so-called exhausted. And that could, in the worst cases, affect election outcomes. But I think it's unlikely that it will affect the outcomes, but I do admit that that it's more likely for problems such as ballot exhaustion to affect elections if a lot of voters only rank a few, not 6. And especially if there are so many candidates, 19 for mayor, 6 out of 19 is not a lot. It's a little unfortunate. The limit of 6 rankings is kind of arbitrary, and as I understand it, it's that limit is because of the voting machinery that was adopted or is being used in Portland, and it may be that ranking, that maximum ranking of 6 is not all that uncommon. But ballot exhaustion is one of those things too. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a more comprehensive description of the way ranked choice voting is going to work in Portland, and that goes into all of these issues in pretty great detail. And in fact, that write-up has an example of voting for both for a single office election as well as for a proportional election. So you could take a look at that.
We're going to be posting it on the website with a summary recap of this presentation. Give us a couple of days to get that up, but by the weekend, hopefully it'll be up there. So yeah, it's a 20 or 32-page report.
Yeah, I guess it's 33 pages, but the last page is something about me. So
that's the most important.
But it's got lots of illustrations, and I think it's fairly easy to read. So I would say if you're really interested, go see that. Any other questions?
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay, how about on Zoom?
Yeah. No, nothing on Zoom.
Nothing on Zoom. Okay. Well, please go out there and vote for 6 candidates if you can in rank order. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nord. This is incredibly helpful, very timely as people get their ballots in the mail. And yeah, looking forward to seeing the results of this and how it affects our city council. Oh, and yeah, I'll skip my question. And we're actually running a little bit ahead of schedule, so we're going to go ahead and do the drumroll nail biter results of the Board of Directors elections for 2024 for the 2024-2026 cycle. And so, Brittany, do you want to come up and read them off?
Yeah, I mean.
Or I guess we.
Everyone got voted.
Yay! Everyone wins. If only the city of Portland elections could be like that, but yes, everyone's a winner.
Well, maybe not, but.
Well, yeah. Yeah. So, thank you so much. Previous board members, new board members, members who are continuing. We're going to do great things together. Really appreciate the dedication. And so with that, looking at the agenda here, we're to the point where we could do the meet and greet early, which is nice because we haven't usually carved out enough time to do that. So if you want to meet the people next to you, get to know a few of your neighbors, great. If you want to find somebody who's on the board, I guess now the new people on the board as well. New people on the board, if you want to ask any questions about what this is going to mean, what did you just get yourself into? And then certainly, if you are just came here for the first time and just want to know more information, come find a board member. If you're interested in volunteering for anything that we discussed or something else that you think the neighborhood needs, let us know and sign in for the volunteer sign up. So with that, we'll close out the formal part of our meeting, and thank you so much for showing up on a chilly October evening.
So I just hit the red button.
Yeah, well, yeah, so you stopped, like,
So yeah, kick off stuff here.
yeah, and yeah, I may as well. And then, yeah, just